You meet someone who feels different. They're distant, a little hard to read, emotionally contained. You tell yourself to stay calm this time, not get attached too fast. But somehow, they're the one who stays on your mind. Not the kind person. Not the available one. Not the one who texts back with warmth. It's the one who keeps you guessing. And the strange part is, this doesn't feel new. It feels familiar. Why does emotional distance sometimes feel more attractive than emotional presence? Let's look at this gently, without blaming you. Maybe you've lived this pattern more than once. You start interested, but calm. Then the mixed signals begin. They open up a little then disappear. They get close then pull away. And instead of losing interest, you feel more pulled in. You think about what you said, what you should say next, how not to scare them away. Your emotional energy rises, not because of connection, but because of uncertainty. And what feels like chemistry might actually be emotional tension. If this pattern repeats in your relationships, there is a reason, and it's not weakness. There is an inner map behind attraction. Let's unfold it step by step. Let's stay with this experience for a moment, not as an idea, but as something lived. Think about how it usually begins. You meet someone and there is a quiet signal, not loud excitement, not instant safety, but a kind of emotional edge. They are polite, maybe charming, but slightly closed. You notice you're doing more of the emotional work in the conversation. You're reading tone, reading pauses, reading delays. And strangely, instead of losing interest, you lean in. When they take hours to answer, your mind doesn't step back, it steps forward. You reread the last message. You adjust your next one. You become more careful, more attentive, more emotionally invested. Not because they gave you more, but because they gave you less. And this is confusing when you look at it from the outside. Because when someone is warm, available, and emotionally clear, part of you relaxes, but another part feels less activated, less pulled, less magnetized. You may even describe the available person as nice, but something is missing. What's missing is not value. What's missing is tension. Many people don't notice this at first because it doesn't feel like a decision. It feels like chemistry, like a natural pull, like instinct. But look closer at what your body is doing in these moments. Your chest is more alert. Your thoughts are faster. You check your phone more often. You replay small interactions. That heightened state can feel like attraction, but physiologically, it looks very similar to uncertainty. Now think about your past connections. Was there someone you couldn't quite reach emotionally, and that made you want them more? Someone who shared just enough to keep you close, but not enough to feel secure. Someone who opened the door slightly, then closed it again, and you stayed outside, hoping it would open wider next time. This pattern is more common than people admit, because we're taught to look at who we choose, but not what emotional state the choice creates inside us. Let's bring this into very ordinary moments. You send a message that matters to you. They respond with something brief and neutral. You feel a drop, then a surge. You try to repair the tone, add warmth, add humor, add care. You move toward when they move away. Or you sit next to them and notice you're the one asking the deeper questions. You're the one opening emotional doors. They answer, but don't invite. And instead of thinking, this is emotionally limited, you think, maybe I need to be more understanding, more patient, more careful, more supportive. You increase your emotional offering in response to emotional distance. From the outside, This looks like devotion. From the inside, it often feels like hope mixed with tension. Another scene. You feel closest to them, not when things are stable, but after a moment of reaction, after distance, after silence, after uncertainty. The relief feels like intimacy. But what if the relief is from anxiety, not from true closeness? Many people unknowingly bond with the return, not the presence. The emotional reunion becomes the reward, not the steady connection. So the nervous system learns. Distance longing, partial return, emotional high. And that cycle starts to feel like love. If you've ever said, "I don't know why I care so much about this person," whoa. With them, it feels intense, different. It's worth noticing whether different means emotionally deep or emotionally unstable. There is no shame in recognizing this. None. Because attraction is not a moral choice, it's an emotional pattern. And patterns are learned through repetition, not intention. You didn't wake up one day and decide, "I want emotionally unavailable people." Your emotional system learned what closeness feels like, somewhere, sometime, and now it recognizes familiar signals faster than healthy ones. That doesn't make you broken. It makes you patterned. And patterns can be understood. Before we even talk about psychology or attachment or emotional history, just stay with this truth. If emotional distance activates you more than emotional availability, there is a story behind that reaction, not a flaw. A story. And once we see the story, the attraction stops feeling mysterious and starts feeling readable. Let's now begin to read it, slowly. Let's begin to put language around what you've been feeling, slowly, without turning this into a lecture. Attraction is often treated like a preference, as if you simply like what you like. But emotional attraction works less like taste, and more like recognition. You are not only attracted to who someone is, you are attracted to what they feel like inside your nervous system. And your nervous system does not measure health first. It measures familiarity first. This is one of the most important emotional truths most people are never taught. Familiar does not mean safe. Familiar means known. If emotional distance was present in your early emotional environment, even in subtle ways, your system may have learned to associate distance with connection. Not because it was ideal, but because it was repeated. Let's make this practical. Imagine a child who grows up with a caregiver, who is physically present but emotionally inconsistent. Some days warm, some days distracted, some days unavailable. The child doesn't stop loving the caregiver, the child adapts. The child learns to monitor mood, to approach carefully, to earn attention, to wait for emotional access. Connection becomes something you move toward, not something that meets you halfway. Fast forward years later, the adult version of that child meets someone emotionally distant, and something inside says, "I know this dance." Not consciously, not verbally, but emotionally. And recognition often feels like attraction. This is why emotionally unavailable partners often feel, paradoxically, emotionally important. Not because they give more connection, but because they activate an old relational pathway. Another layer of this pattern involves emotional uncertainty. When availability is steady, your nervous system relaxes. When availability is inconsistent, your nervous system activates. Activation increases focus, attention, emotional energy. Many people mislabel activation as chemistry. But chemistry and activation are not the same. Chemistry is mutual emotional movement. Activation is internal emotional arousal. One is shared. One is triggered. Think about how suspense works in storytelling. A predictable story feels calm. An uncertain story keeps you watching. Your emotional system leans forward when outcomes are unclear. Emotionally unavailable people create relational suspense. You don't know where you stand. You don't know how they feel. You don't know when they'll open. That uncertainty increases emotional investment, not because the bond is strong, but because the signal is unstable. This is not stupidity. It's neurobiology. Uncertainty increases dopamine activity. Dopamine is not the pleasure chemical. It is the seeking chemical. It drives pursuit, focus, anticipation. So when emotional availability is unpredictable, your brain may increase pursuit behavior, attention, fantasy, emotional projection. You think you're falling in love. Sometimes you're falling into pursuit mode. Let's bring this into adult relational language. You feel more emotionally engaged with the one who replies unpredictably, the one who reveals slowly, the one who stays slightly closed, the one you are still trying to understand. Why? Because your emotional system is engaged in resolution seeking. It wants closure, access, emotional confirmation. Now notice something important. This pursuit dynamic often makes you bring more of yourself forward, faster and deeper, than the other person does. You become emotionally expressive in a one-sided way. And when you give more emotional energy than you receive, your mind tries to justify the imbalance. You tell yourself, they're just guarded. They've been hurt. They need patience. They're deep but careful. Sometimes that's true. Often it's hope trying to stabilize uncertainty. There is another mechanism here, emotional earning. Some people learned early that connection must be earned, not assumed. That warmth is conditional. That closeness comes after proving worth, usefulness, or emotional endurance. If that is your emotional blueprint, emotionally available people can feel strangely uncomfortable because they offer connection without requiring performance. And when connection doesn't require earning, it can feel unfamiliar. Unfamiliar sometimes feels unsafe, even when it's healthy. So you may gravitate toward relationships where emotional access feels like something you must unlock, not something you are given. Emotionally unavailable partners create emotional tasks. Decode them. Support them. Wait for them. Soften them. Reach them. And tasks create emotional investment. Investment can feel like intimacy, even when reciprocity is low. Another subtle factor is emotional mirroring. Emotionally available people mirror feelings back. They respond to emotional bids. Emotionally unavailable people mirror less. That creates a gap, and gaps create projection. When there is a gap, you fill it with imagination. You imagine depth. You imagine hidden feeling. You imagine potential closeness. Projection increases attachment, not because of what is present, but because of what is imagined. The less emotional data you receive, the more your mind supplies. This is why people sometimes feel deeply attached to someone who has shown very little emotional openness. The attachment is partly built from internal projection. None of this means your feelings are fake. It means your feelings are pattern-shaped. And patterns are not destiny, but they are powerful until recognized. Here is the key shift. You are not attracted to emotional unavailability itself. You are attracted to the emotional position it places you in. The pursuer, the interpreter, the hopeful one, the emotional bridge builder. That role may feel deeply familiar, and familiarity often disguises itself as preference. In the next part, we're going to go deeper, not just into how this pattern forms, but how it repeats, even when you consciously want something different. Because repetition is not stubbornness. It is emotional memory in motion. Let's go one level deeper now, not into labels, but into formation. Because emotional attraction patterns don't appear randomly in adulthood, they are built slowly, through repeated emotional experiences, especially the early ones, where connection and safety were first learned. Your emotional system learned what closeness feels like before you had words for it, before logic, before reflection, before choice. It learned through exposure, not just what love is, but how love behaves. Some people learned closeness through steady presence, someone emotionally reachable, predictable, responsive. In those cases, emotional availability feels normal, calm feels intimate, stability feels attractive. But many people learned closeness through interruption, through partial presence, through emotional unpredictability, through caregivers who loved, but were overwhelmed, distant, anxious, depressed, distracted, or inconsistent. And here is the part that matters. Children don't evaluate emotional environments. They adapt to them. If warmth is inconsistent, the child doesn't say, "This is unhealthy." The child says, emotionally, "This is connection." Adaptation becomes imprint. Let's look at how that imprint shapes adult attraction. Imagine a child who learned that emotional access comes and goes. Sometimes the parent is emotionally available, sometimes unreachable. The child becomes attentive, highly sensitive to emotional shifts. They learn to read tone quickly, mood quickly, signals quickly. They become emotionally vigilant, not because they are anxious by nature, but because emotional connection required monitoring. Years later, when this person meets someone emotionally unpredictable, their system doesn't panic. It activates a familiar skill set. Reading signals, waiting for openings, adjusting responses. This feels like engagement, even though it is actually regulation work. Emotional vigilance can feel like emotional intimacy when it has been practiced long enough. Now consider another formation pattern, emotional self-sufficiency training. Some children grow up in environments where emotional needs are minimized, not cruelly, but consistently. Don't be too sensitive. You're fine. That's not a big deal. Handle it yourself. The child learns something subtle but powerful. Needing emotional closeness feels risky. Depending feels unsafe. Expressing vulnerability feels excessive. So they build independence early. As adults, these individuals may consciously want closeness, but unconsciously feel safer with emotional distance. Emotionally unavailable partners fit this system perfectly. Because distance doesn't trigger dependency fears. Distance feels controlled. Distance feels familiar. They may say they want connection, and they do, but their nervous system relaxes more with emotional space than with emotional access. So attraction follows regulation, not declared desire. There is also a repetition mechanism that works below awareness, emotional echoing. We are often drawn toward emotional environments that echo unresolved emotional dynamics, not to suffer again, but to resolve differently. This is not masochism. It is unfinished emotional learning trying to complete itself. If someone grew up trying to reach a distant emotional figure, they may later feel drawn toward distant partners, not to repeat pain, but to finally succeed at being emotionally received. The unconscious hope is, this time, I'll be enough. This time, I'll be chosen. This time, I'll be seen. The adult relationship becomes the stage where the old emotional script tries to rewrite its ending. But here is the paradox. When you choose partners based on emotional similarity to the original wound, you often recreate the same emotional limitation. Not because you want pain, but because familiarity guides selection faster than intention. Let's make this very concrete. Someone says, "I keep choosing people who don't open up." But when emotionally open partners appear, they feel too intense, too available, too emotionally close, too fast. Why? Because emotional availability removes the emotional puzzle. And if your early emotional world required solving emotional puzzles, openness can feel emotionally disorienting. No puzzle, no chase, no decoding. And without decoding, the interaction can feel flat, not because it lacks depth, but because it lacks emotional labor. Another layer is emotional identity. We don't just learn how to relate, we learn who we are in relationships. Some people learned, "I am the one who waits. I am the one who understands. I am the one who supports. I am the one who stays." These roles can become identity anchors. If your relational identity is built around emotional reaching, emotionally available partners remove your role. There is nothing to fix, nothing to unlock, nothing to earn. Without the role, attraction can feel directionless. So the system unconsciously seeks situations where the role still applies. This is why some people say, "I lose interest when it's easy." It's not ease they reject. It's role loss. There is also a timing factor in emotional imprinting. Emotional learning happens most strongly under stress. When emotional experiences occur under tension, uncertainty, or longing, they are encoded more deeply. If early closeness was mixed with longing, your system may later associate longing with love. Longing feels romantic. Distance feels magnetic. Waiting feels meaningful. But longing is not intimacy. It is proximity without access. Still, if longing was part of your earliest emotional bonds, your system may treat it as a marker of importance. Now let's talk about emotional contradiction, one of the strongest pattern-forming forces. When someone is both a source of comfort and a source of emotional unpredictability, the bond intensifies. The nervous system links relief with the same person who caused the distress. This creates a powerful emotional circuit. Distress person relief. Later in life, emotionally unavailable partners recreate this cycle. Distance anxiety reaction emotional high. The high feels like intimacy, but it is actually relief. Relief is powerful, but it is not the same as closeness. Your emotional system may be chasing relief cycles, thinking it is chasing love. Understanding this changes everything, not instantly, but structurally. Because once you can see that attraction is pattern-shaped, you stop asking, "What is wrong with me?" and start asking, "What does my emotional system recognize as familiar?" That question opens the door to change, not forced change, but aware change. In the next part, we will move from origin to interruption, how to recognize this pattern while it is happening, and how to weaken it without fighting yourself. Because patterns don't break through force. They loosen through awareness. Now we move from understanding the pattern to recognizing it while it is happening. Because insight is helpful, but recognition in real time is what changes outcomes. You don't need to fix yourself to change attraction patterns. You need to learn to notice activation signals early, before emotional investment locks in. Patterns don't start at commitment. They start at micro moments of pull. So let's make this practical. There are early signs, very early, that you are entering an emotional unavailability attraction loop. Most people miss them because they are subtle and internal, not dramatic. Here is the first one. Signal 1. Your interest rises faster than the connection. You feel emotionally pulled before emotional safety exists. You're thinking about them more than you actually know them. You are emotionally ahead of the relational reality. You are investing in possibility, not in evidence. This often feels like, I don't know why, but I feel drawn. Translation. Your nervous system activated before reciprocity appeared. Healthy attraction grows with mutuality. Pattern attraction grows with uncertainty. Second signal. Signal 2. You are doing emotional interpretation work. You are analyzing tone, reading pauses, decoding short replies, explaining their distance to yourself. When connection is healthy, communication is clear enough that you don't need constant interpretation. When attraction is pattern-driven, you become an emotional detective. You search for meaning in fragments. You tell yourself, they're just busy. They're guarded. They're afraid to open up. Maybe, but notice, you are building emotional context for someone who has not provided it. Interpretation is emotional labor. If your attraction includes high interpretation effort, pause. Third signal. Signal 3. You feel relief, not warmth, when they respond. This one is extremely important. Ask yourself, when they reconnect, what do I feel first? Warmth or relief? Warmth says, connection. Relief says, tension release. If your primary emotional reaction is relief, your system was in a stress state, not a bond state. That doesn't mean your feelings are fake. It means your nervous system is cycling tension, not receiving steady closeness. Fourth signal. Signal 4. You are self-editing emotionally. You reduce your emotional expression to avoid pushing them away. You say less than you feel. Ask less than you want. Reveal less than you are ready to share. You are managing their distance instead of being yourself. Healthy attraction increases emotional authenticity. Pattern attraction increases emotional self-management. Fifth signal. Signal 5. You feel emotionally energized, but not emotionally safe. There is excitement, but not grounding. You feel stimulated, but not settled. Your body feels alert, not relaxed. Many people mistake alertness for passion. But emotional safety feels calm, not electric. Electric can be beautiful, but if it is built on unpredictability, it is unstable energy. Now let's talk about interruption, not rejection, not suppression, interruption. You are not trying to stop attraction by force. That never works. You are inserting awareness between activation and attachment. Think of it like this. Activation says, move closer fast. Awareness says, observe first. Here are practical interruption tools. Interruption 1. Slow the emotional timeline. Do not speed up emotional access when reciprocity is slow. If they are emotionally gradual, you stay emotionally gradual. Match pace. Don't compensate for distance with intensity. This alone changes pattern dynamics dramatically. Interruption 2. Name the activation out loud, to yourself. This feels activating. This feels uncertain. This feels like emotional chase energy. Naming reduces automaticity. What is named becomes observable. What is observable becomes interruptible. Interruption 3. Track reciprocity, not intensity. Ask, are they moving toward me, or am I moving toward them alone? Reciprocity is not emotional depth. Reciprocity is emotional direction. Even small gestures count, but they must be mutual. If emotional direction is one-sided, do not upgrade emotional investment. Interruption 4. Delay emotional projection. Do not build a future emotional story from partial emotional data. No. They could be amazing if. Stay with what is present, not potential. Projection fuels attachment faster than reality. Interruption 5. Use the calm test. Ask yourself, when I imagine closeness with this person, do I feel calm or tense? Your nervous system answers faster than your mind. Calm equals safety signal. Tension equals uncertainty signal. Attraction built on tension is unstable by nature. Interruption 6. Reverse the emotional question. Instead of, do they like me? Ask, do I feel emotionally received here? This shifts focus from approval to experience. Pattern attraction seeks approval. Healthy attraction seeks reception. Interruption 7. Watch your emotional role. Are you becoming the fixer, the supporter, the patient one, the emotional translator? If yes, pause. Roles can feel meaningful, but they are not the same as mutual intimacy. Now an important truth. Interrupting the pattern may initially feel like losing attraction, because what you are actually losing is activation, not connection. Activation feels intense. Connection feels steady. If you are used to activation, steadiness may feel flat at first. This is not loss, it is recalibration. Your system is learning a new emotional flavor. Another key practice, emotional contrast exposure. Spend time noticing how emotionally available people actually feel in your body. Not in theory, in sensation. Notice your breathing, your muscle tension, your mental pace, your emotional openness. Many people discover that safety feels quieter, but deeper. Pattern attraction is loud. Secure attraction is spacious. There is also a boundary tool here. When emotional availability is low, increase observational distance, not emotional pursuit. Distance is data. If someone stays emotionally closed over time, believe the pattern, not the potential. You are not required to unlock anyone emotionally to deserve connection. And finally, compassion. Do not shame yourself for pattern attraction. Your system learned something once that helped you survive emotionally. It is not wrong, it is outdated. We are not erasing your emotional history. We are updating your emotional navigation. In the final part, we will bring this together, not with pressure to change, but with permission to choose awareness over repetition, gently and consistently. Let's bring this together gently. Not as a diagnosis, not as a rule, but as an understanding. If you feel drawn to emotionally unavailable people, it does not mean you are broken. It does not mean you sabotage love. And it does not mean you secretly want to suffer. It means your emotional system learned a certain map of closeness, and it has been navigating by that map ever since. Maps are not destiny. They are guidance systems. And guidance systems can be updated. You are not trying to delete attraction. You are learning to read it more accurately. Instead of asking, why am I like this? You can begin asking, what does this attraction activate inside me? That question changes the tone from blame to curiosity. Because attraction is information. It tells you what feels familiar, what feels activating, what feels emotionally charged. And when you understand the signal, you gain choice, not forced choice, but informed choice. You may still feel drawn to emotionally distant people sometimes. Awareness does not erase activation overnight. But awareness changes what happens next. Before, activation led directly to emotional investment. Now, activation can lead to observation. That pause is powerful. In that pause, you may notice, I'm leaning forward again. I'm interpreting again. I'm trying to earn access again. And instead of accelerating, you can soften your pace. Patterns weaken when they are not automatically fed. You don't fight them. You stop overfueling them. There is also something important to honor here. Many people who are drawn to emotionally unavailable partners are deeply emotionally capable, deeply perceptive, deeply loyal, deeply willing to connect. Your capacity for emotional depth is not the problem. The direction of that depth is what needs adjustment. Depth deserves reciprocity. Emotional generosity deserves emotional response. Patience deserves presence. You are not too much for wanting emotional availability. You are not demanding for wanting emotional clarity. You are not needy for wanting mutual openness. Mutuality is not excess. It is structure. And sometimes the most healing shift is not learning to want less, but learning to expect balance. Another gentle truth: secure connection can feel unfamiliar at first. If you are used to emotional tension, calm connection may feel quiet, even strange. Not boring, but uncharged. Give your nervous system time to learn that calm can be intimate. Familiar does not automatically mean right. Unfamiliar does not automatically mean wrong. Sometimes unfamiliar means new emotional territory. And new territory often feels neutral before it feels beautiful. Be patient with your emotional recalibration. You are not late. You are not behind. You are not failing at relationships. You are learning to see your emotional patterns in real time, and that alone is rare and powerful work. If you notice yourself in this pattern, try one small practice this week. When you feel emotionally pulled toward someone, ask one additional question. Do I feel emotionally met here, or emotionally activated here? Met or activated? Received or chasing? Answered or interpreting? That single distinction can change your relational direction over time. Not instantly, but reliably. And if you recognize yourself strongly in this pattern, don't isolate with it. Patterns grow stronger in silence and softer in language. You're welcome to share, not details, not names, but recognition. A simple, "This is familiar to me," is already a step out of repetition and into awareness. You are not alone in this pattern, far from it. Many emotionally intelligent, sensitive, thoughtful people walk this exact path before they learn to see it clearly. And clarity is not the end of attraction, it is the beginning of freedom inside it. In our next exploration, we'll look at what emotionally available connection actually feels like, not as a theory, but as a lived emotional experience, so you can recognize it not only with your mind, but with your body. Slow is allowed. Learning is allowed. Changing pace is allowed. You are not required to rush your healing, only to stay awake inside it.